Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do now is to hand over to our next presenter, Dave McDowell from Enghouse. And Dave will be looking at the question of, are you ready to drive a paradigm shift in the way you manage your remote workforce? So, Dave, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Jonathan. Right, okay, so just a quick introduction. My name's Dave McDowell. I'm from Edgehouse Interactive. Senior technical consultant working in our contact center practice. So just a very, very brief couple of slides, and then I'm going to be actually showing you some active and live content. So who are Enghouse Interactive? Well, we're part of Enghouse Systems, a global company. Our sister organizations within there are Enghouse Networks and Enghouse Transportation. But Enghouse Interactive have 35 years experience of delivering contact center solutions, software, etc. We've got over 10,000 global customers and over 1 million seats of contact center deployed. So, you know, we like to think we're pretty expert in this field. And what I want to bring to you today is some of those, the experiences and understanding, particularly that's been grown through the COVID pandemic, but some of the tools that are required to actually successfully manage a remote workforce. And it's not just about managing the remote workforce, it's actually about creating a collaborative environment between the workforce and inclusion. So just because people are remote doesn't mean they should feel separated. In terms of deployment of contact center, we support our partners, like Britannic, in terms of supplying our software in a whole myriad of deployment options, be that private, cloud, on-premise, hybrid cloud, public cloud, etc. This technology can work across those different paradigms for delivery, but the important thing is getting it right in terms of having access and visibility of the entire workforce. Now, so I promised there wouldn't be many slides. That's it in terms of slides. So I'm just going to go straight to my desktop. And I want to show you what it actually looks like in terms of an Enghouse contact center, in terms of managing your contact center, managing the staff, what level of visibility you can have. And this, as I said before, this works both ways. But I'm going to start out with the supervisor perspective on this, supervisor manager. So a supervisor, a manager, or a team lead, they need to understand what their team are doing. If they're not in the same building, not in the same room, what can I do to collaborate with my team, understand their needs, understand what they're doing? Well, the first entry point for me is the contact center software itself. So I'm showing here Communication Center, our main go-to-market contact center in the UK. And as part of the desktop environment for supervisors is the Touchpoint client. And in here, we have a whole range of tabs, which I'm not going to bore you with all of the different facets of it today, but I'm going to focus on a few of those, which can give you real visibility of what's happening in real time, allowing you to respond to circumstances as they change. So first of all, I've got the ability to see my queues. Now, this can be a whole range of queues across all of the medias. We're not just talking about visibility of the voice calls coming into your contact center. It's about social media, web chat, email, outbound contact, SMS, all can be filtered through the same platform, so you have visibility of all the channels. You don't have to worry about different silos and monitoring those different silos. So in here, I can see in real time exactly what's happening in my contact center. Now, in the background, I've actually got some automated calls and interactions coming into the contact center. So I'm just going to ramp those up a bit so that we start seeing some alerts and alarms. So I've just suddenly pushed loads of calls into this rents queue. I don't have enough agents to deal with it. And so immediately those alarms start triggering, proactively warning me that there are issues in my contact center. So on this rents queue, I've got a number of calls queuing and a wait time alarming. It's also started alarming through into my chat queue as well now. So you'll see it's working across multiple medias. I've got this flashing on and off like traffic lights because I've got very low thresholds to actually show you what this looks like from a supervisor perspective. If I didn't have the client open at this point on my desktop, I will get the alarms. They will pop up, and I can also have these as audible alarms. So something to grab my attention, make me understand that there's something I need to respond to. If I click on a show queues, it'll take me to the actual information that's pertinent to those queues. So immediately I can start looking at these queues and understanding, why are we in alert status, what's going on. And the first thing I might want to do is drill down into that queue and have a look at the status of that queue. So the first thing, I can see the calls in queue. Well, actually, we've just dropped right back in terms of numbers, but I can see the actual calls in queue. I can also see which agents are assigned and what their current status. And immediately I'm able to see who are logged in and available, who are on breaks, who would be on a work time, etc. So I begin to build up a picture of what's occurring in my contact center. And as you'll see, as these things flash through, the different icons are telling me the status of the agents, who's on calls, who's actually in work time, who's in breaks, etc. are all visible to me. I can also look back at the queue stats and understand what the trends are on that queue. It's not just about what's happening this second, it's about what's been happening every 15 minutes throughout the day. So things like my service level, is it trending down, is it trending up? This is in real-time information available at my fingertips. And then finally, I could look at the activity that's happened on that queue today, including any abandoned calls as a result of these queue times. I can go in and actually call back or arrange for other people to call back. So I'm getting all of this interactive information. And as a supervisor, I also have the ability to affect change on those queues. Maybe because of the circumstances we're in, I need to change the handling in that queue to respond to this overload. Well, given my supervisor permissions, I can do things like change the actual handling, the what we call the mode of a queue, and how things are handled in that queue. I'm just going to dial that down slightly so that we don't get to quite so many alerts popping all the time. I've got an emulator running that's putting the number of calls through those queues. But you can see here, I've got all of those statistics on what's going on in the queue. I can also change the actual alert thresholds that I'm being notified against. We have system-wide settings that you would set when you set up queues and attributes of the system, but you need to also be able to respond to circumstances. If you've already breached the threshold, for example, your service level threshold for today, there's no use to you of having alerts popping all the time. You need to be able to tune those alerts to the circumstances you're actually in, so that you can actually be reacting meaningfully to what's going on in the contact center. So in here, it allows me to actually change the local alert thresholds in the system, change with the audio files that I might want to be alerted on as part of those alerts. So that's the queue side. I can see what's going on. I can react to that as required. But I've also got visibility more directly of the agents. So I can come into the agents view. I can see which agents are active, what status they're in at any time. I've got statistics around how long they've been logged in, the calls they've handled, the break times, and I can drill into that information in the same way we can with the queues view. We can understand in more detail what the current activity of that agent is. Now, for example, if we're on non-voice channels, on chat, email, etc., there may be multiple activities that the agent is active on at any time. I can look at their queue assignment, how many interactions they've handled against the total, so understand where they fit in the overall picture, and also see their recent activity. In agents that are being call recorded, I've also got, when I do the access to their details, I've got direct access to their call recordings, can listen back to their calls as well throughout the day. And I've also got visibility of their scorecarding over the last period. So the last 30 days, how many times have they been scorecarded? What was their average? So not only have I got call stats, I've got historic information. And as a supervisor, I've got the ability to change the status of agents. I can move agents into work time breaks, set alert thresholds against individual agents. I can log them out, log them back in against different queues. So I've got full control and visibility of my agents, but also the ability to communicate with them, to talk with them. And it's not just about contact center visibility. If we're in a UC environment with presence, then we can also expose the presence. This demo system I'm using today is using Teams. So I'm surfacing the Teams presence to the supervisors as well as their contact center presence. So I've got visibility. I can call my agents, I can email them, I can chat to them as required. It's, as I say, it's all about that visibility. So beyond that, I also have other tools available to me in terms of those monitoring of the contact center. I may not always be logged into the touchpoint client. I may not be sitting at my desk. So we have other tools for that. We also have our wallboard applications. Now, traditionally, wallboards would have been up on a large screen in the office. Well, that's not a lot of use if everyone's remote. But just because we have a wallboard doesn't mean it has to be on a large screen. It's all browser-based. I can embed it in the touchpoint client here. So I've got a couple of examples for different teams where I can see the status of agents in a single view. I can see the status of the queues and also third-party data. I'm taking some information from my ticketing system here. So I'm doing some SQL queries and collating all of that information into one place. Now, as I said, this is browser-based, so this doesn't have to be exposed and surfaced through the contact center client. I could actually just be surfacing this through browsers. I can have any number of these browsers for different teams, different views, for different parts of my organization, different teams, as I say. So these are HTML5 web pages. I could be looking at this on my mobile phone. I could be looking at this on a tablet whilst I'm in a meeting, whilst I'm on other activities. Again, this has alarming and alerting on thresholds. So if I ramp up the calls coming into queue, you'll see the alerts begin to propagate through here as we exceed certain thresholds in the queue and wait times in the queue. I can alarm and alert to the agents and or supervisors. So it's about giving visibility across users of the system, irrespective of where they may be situated at any particular time. And also as part of that, it's the ability when I do see a problem to go in, drill down, and have a deeper understanding of what's occurring. Now, that was very much from the supervisor's perspective, but the same is true from an agent. If you have remote agents, you want to engender an idea of teamwork and of collective responsibility. It's not about someone remotely sitting, monitoring them, cracking the whip, making sure everyone's working. People respond to teamwork, to collaboration. So in the same way as the supervisor has access to these views, as an agent, I've now switched to another user. As an agent, I have similar views. I don't have the same capability in affecting change. So when I look at my queues, I can still see the queues. I can see all the activity going on in them, and I can view details. So I can do that drill down, but I don't have the ability to affect change. So I can't change the mode of the queues as an agent, but I can understand the context in which I'm working. So as alerts and alarms come up in the contact center, as an agent, I can have those same alerts and alarms. I've got no reason not to understand how busy the contact center is. Is there something I could do to help and assist in that environment? So that's my view of the queues, but I also can have the view of the other agents. The difference again is one of ability to change. Now I can see the other agents, but I can't go in, drill into their details. It's none of my business. But at a high level, I can see who's available, who's on break, and quite detailed levels of information. So for example, I can see these users, they're on what's called a pending break. So they've requested a break whilst they're on a phone call. So that will come into effect once they finish their phone call. So I can understand what's going on with my colleagues. Is it a good time for me to be taking my break right now? So obviously you would extend this out to using workforce management tools and real-time adherence, but this gives another layer to the agents to be able to make decisions for themselves, to be able to understand what it is they should be doing in any particular circumstance. If I'm seeing lots of alerts and alarms, maybe at this time I came off of a work time doing some filing, doing some side work, and put myself back on the phones? Why do I need to wait for my supervisor to ask me to do that? And similarly to the supervisor, I can have access to my contacts and presence, UC information, understand the status of people who maybe aren't logged into the contact center, but when I want to go to a subject matter expert, when I want to reach into the back office and consult over a query I'm handling, what's their availability? What does my whole organization look like? So the collaboration isn't just backwards into the contact center, it's out across the whole business. And the more you give these tools to agents and supervisors, the more they can respond to them. And similarly to the wallboard application, there's no reason an agent can't have wallboards applications as well. Now, they're going to be concentrating on the call handling aspect, so they're probably not going to have this client open most of the time, except when alerts are coming. But they may have a small wallboard that they're keeping in open view to keep them aware of the status of the overall queues contact center that they're working on, in addition to the system alerts that are being popped up for them. I'm just going to dial back those alerts again. As we move forward as well into the UC world, it's not just about isolating this information into the contact center, it's also about exposing this into the UC clients themselves. So I'm just going to quickly flick back to the supervisor. And in supervisor, as I mentioned earlier, my supervisor is using Teams. So in Teams, we are also exposing the same contact center real-time information as we saw in the contact center client. So in here, I've got an embedded application within Teams, which is a browser version of the Touchpoint client, which allows me within Teams to monitor as a supervisor all of my agents, understand what medias they are active on. So here I can see which actual medias they're logged into, and this is quite small, but there's a little underline that comes on each media type, which shows them active in a conversation at any time. So I've got visibility of the status of my agents, even when I'm nowhere near the contact center. As long as I'm in Teams, this could be on my mobile Teams client. I've also got visibility of the queues, so I can see the status of the queues. And that's not just necessarily queues that I have direct responsibility for. This is all permissions driven. I could be looking at the wider organization depending on my permissions rather than just my immediate team, because sometimes as a supervisor manager I may need to look at where are there alternate resources, are there other queues, are there other groups of agents in the business that could be redirected to handle peaks in my area of the business. So as we extend this information out, we can embed more and more in that collaboration environment. In the same way, we could embed the snapshot wallboard applications into browser tabs within Teams. So this is when we start moving into Teams themselves and creating, in the case of Microsoft Teams, contact center teams. So it's now about what's the collaboration that's available in Teams itself. And this is where we can surface the different web pages from maybe the call recordings, maybe from the wallboards, etc. But also extend out that wider collaboration organization for agents to access. When do we pull back office people in to deal with those peaks and troughs in the contact center? The sort of final thing on this really is also where in our case it's the quality management suite, which is the recording platform and monitoring. This allows me also as a remote supervisor manager to monitor what my agents are doing and assist them. So with screen recording, it's not just about monitoring and listening to voice. I can actually see what's going on their screen. I can assist them, I can coach them, I can help them in using back office systems as well. It's not just restricted down to the voice calls. Our recording platform is actually sitting across all the medias. So when I come back to review and score and coach my staff. It's about looking at how they managed all of their interactions. So how did they manage SMS? How did they manage web chat? How did they manage email? And I can do objective scoring and coaching across all of the media in the same platforms and the same interfaces. So I think if there's one thing to take away from this is to really understand that any monitoring and management tools that you bring to bear with remote workers, it's about not just using them as a monitoring tool from one way, it's also exposing them to agents. Make them still feel part of a contact center, make them still feel part of a team, understanding what their collaborative effort has and what the impact of that. If I put in a good day's work, can I see the impact? Can I see those alarms stop popping up on my desktop? And also, can I see that I'm actually doing my fair share of the work, that others are there with me? It can feel when you're isolated and at home that you're the only one working, that you're the only one taking the load. Having visibility of others being busy as well, at least makes you feel that you're part of the team and everyone is in that same space. I think that's sort of pretty much my time in terms of them now moving into Q&A. Something really strange has happened to my camera, I can see, but never mind.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Dave. I think what it will do is it will definitely prove that this is a live event, right? That's that little drop there, but well recovered, Dave. So do we have any next few minutes? Do we have any questions for Dave? If so, please do type them in the chat box there. Okay, I'll ask you one, Dave.
Yeah, sure.
What would you say the common mistakes are that people make when they're planning effective management of remote staff through a contact center?
I think one of the ones I've seen is still treating is when they're in the office, when they're in the contact center, they act as a team. It is collaborative just by its nature. When you're managing remote workers, there's more of a tendency to treat them just as individuals. Now, it's great that people are individuals, but you still need to have that team spirit. So that means, yes, about the visibility I've been talking about, but it's still having team briefings, team meetings, having a collaboration. So it's using online tools like we're using today. It's not just about the contact center delivery of interactions. It's about engendering that team spirit. So it still needs to have people coming together, talking as a group, discussing what's going on, how they're working. And it's not a technology thing, it's a people thing. It's about understanding that people still need to have contact with each other. You need to make time in the day with your distant contact center where people can still discuss how work is going and how they're handling, what the trends are. You need to make more time for that because that was casual and over the coffee machine previously. It's now got to be made time for in the day in the contact center. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know, how much do you learn from people just having casual conversations and talking through problems and getting other people's input and insight into. So that's something that's really important not to lose with home working is the ability to, you know, to sort of have those informal chats. You know, I was doing this today, or I experienced this particular problem, and actually, you know, talking through things and getting the support to talk through them is really important. I've just seen another question pop up. So can Enghouse integrate with Power BI?
Yes, so I mean, we can write all of our reporting data to, you know, SQL tables, which then, you know, can feed straight into Power BI. So absolutely, that, you know, all of that information could be going into dashboards, historic reporting, etc. as well.
Okay, brilliant. Any more questions for Dave? I think we're nearly there on time. So Dave, well done in in bringing things back on time after I ran a couple of seconds there. So, any more questions for Dave? No? Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Dave. Really enjoyed it. Great presentation and demo. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.